CURES is sponsored by Wheeler Health's Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.
Helping you lead a healthier life. This is CURES.
Welcome to the CURES Show. Well, this is where we explore the cutting edge of wellness for our mind, body, and spirit. I'm Kara Sundlin. So how about the science of successful relationships and how to get along, especially in these turbulent times? Well, Yale happiness researcher Emma Seppala has some thoughts on that, and she is here to help us out. Thank you so much for being back.
My pleasure.
I love that you're a happiness researcher. I feel like we should just talk to you all day long. Because there are real strategies, right?
There are real strategies backed by science that we can all use and implement.
Yeah, and you have a new book that's out, and I think we're just putting that up right now. It's called Sovereign. And I'm interested because you call it Sovereign, reclaim your freedom, energy, and power in a time of distraction, uncertainty, and chaos. Of course, that's what we're living in. But why did you choose the title Sovereign when it comes to being happy or being well-balanced?
Yes, whenever we're in a state of mind in which we are not happy, where we're stressed, where we're anxious, where we're burned out, we often act like we're not ourselves, right? We often don't like how we've just showed up for our colleagues, for our children. And I think of that as being the bound state, or it's like we're in like a matrix, so we can't get out of it, and you're in that moment, right? But then sovereignty is those moments when we are at our best, and that's when we usually show up as the person we want to be. And those moments come, and then we get trapped in like stress and anxiety, and then we come out of it, right? So sovereignty is like, how can we be more in that sovereign space, in that place where we show up as our best selves?
Like, I think a lot of people think if you're a master, if you're someone who teaches happiness at Yale, and you, or someone who is a yogi or whatever, that they must not ever get in those moments, or that doesn't happen to them. Is that not true? It's just better that we learn how to manage them? Are we always going to hit those bumps and moments where we kind of lose it?
I mean, I think that's human life.
Right.
That's the journey of our life, is that we go through the difficulties and we show up as not our best self, and then we come back out. But one thing that we can do is cultivate a state of mind, a state of being in which we are more resilient. So we come out quicker from those troubled times, and we're more resilient when things get hard.
Yeah, so that's really the goal, is resiliency, noticing when we're not ourselves, and moving back to that sovereign state faster.
Yes, right.
Not that we're never going to need to use our tools, but just
Exactly,
Okay. So
exactly.
maybe there are some enlightened people out there, but in general, even those who, like yourself, I just want to make everyone feel good at home, if like yourself, who even though you have all these tools and you've studied this, it's still, we're going to all have our moments.
Yes.
And when we talk about relationships, that's key, because relationships are everything in our life. So there is a science to happy relationships.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a lot we can say here, but let's start with the basics, which is that, I think we've all been around certain people where after spending time with them, we feel drained. Yeah. Right? And there's, the term energy vampire has been around for like 30 years, and it's nothing new. But the one thing we forget is that there are other people that we can spend time with, and after being with them, we feel uplifted.
Yeah. And that's being a positive energizer?
Yeah, and I mean, that's how I feel after spending time with you, and I'm sure how your viewers feel too. There's certain people that are like sunshine people, and when you're with them, you're like, my battery just got filled. Like, what is it about these people, right?
Those people in our life where, and it might be different for different people, right? Some people, aren't your cup of tea, but we should notice, is that step one, notice that the people who are draining us, maybe we need some boundaries.
Well, definitely need boundaries there, but the question is, what is it about those sunshine people? And so I have a colleague who looked at the data on this, and he found that, when he was looking at companies, in terms of companies are large networks of people, he found that there were certain people who generated all of this creativity and all of this productivity around them. He thought, well, what's going on there? What is it about these people? It turns out they were these positive energizers, in the sense that they make people feel uplifted.
Okay.
And if he looked at the science, like, what are they doing specifically? They're showing up with values like compassion, kindness, empathy, humility, generosity. Sounds like the stuff you learn in Sunday school.
Right.
But how do you feel around someone who is really honest, really kind, compassionate? How do you feel?
It's, right. We feel good, or we feel heard, or we feel all those things. So that's the secret sauce. If we want to have better relationships at home or at work, we need to emulate those qualities more.
So that's step number one. So if you break it down after food and shelter, the greatest need that everybody has at any age of their life is first feel safe. So
Okay.
you've got your food and shelter, you want to feel safe. So you feel safe around someone who's honest. You feel safe around someone who's compassionate, right? But the other thing we want to is feel seen, heard, valued, and appreciated. That's what everybody wants. From the 5-year-old to the 85-year-old.
Yeah.
And when people make us, it's like people with a lot of charisma. What do they say? Like, this person made me feel like I was the only person in the room.
Yes,
right?
yes.
How
And
do they-
people are naturally drawn to them, right?
Exactly. So they are definitely positive energizers. How do they do it? There's science again to it. And it has everything to do with their ability to make people feel seen, heard, valued, and appreciated in a genuine way.
Okay.
And so they both show up with these values of kindness, compassion, all that. People feel safe around them, feel seen around them. And that generates this incredible feeling of upliftment. But there's another aspect too.
Okay.
And that's that when it's hard for you to show up that way if your tank isn't full.
Okay.
Right?
So if we back it up even more,
Yep.
and this is why self-care is not selfish.
Yes.
As busy moms, as all of it, sometimes we give like so much to something outside of ourselves, and then you've got nothing left. So it's going to be really hard to be that positive energizer, and your relationships can suffer if you're not taking care of yourself.
Yes. And I think there's so many people talk about that right now, but it is so true scientifically too. Because when you have taken time to meditate or take your walk in nature or slept enough or whatever the things are that nourish you and make you feel peaceful, calm, and happy, you're going to show up so much better for others and in a way that you can feel proud of. Oh, I was there fully present with my child as opposed to distracted and annoyed and whatever else, right?
Right.
And yeah.
So, I mean, we've all had that. And let's take if you have a partner at home. So maybe you're having an argument with your husband, or you're just finding everyone in the house is irritating you. Obviously, that's not the positive relationship that you want. Yeah. So how do you use these tools of happiness to change that and kind of flip it before you end up having a really bad day?
Yes. So what's really interesting is your partner or your child or whoever's doing the annoying thing, on one day they can feel really annoying. On another day, it's water off a duck's back. What's the difference? Where our nervous system is that day.
Okay, so
Right?
It starts with our nervous system, and that's the science. So we all have, I think I have a pretty sensitive nervous system. So, and some of us might have more sensitive than others. But
Yes.
how do we fix that?
I mean, the sensitivity is a wonderful thing. It makes you the empathic, compassionate, and deep feeling, deep thinking person you are. But the question is, how do I navigate this world being very sensitive, say in a situation where someone is being very annoying? Well, but the difference is that let's say you have done your meditation in the morning and you have slept your 8 hours, that person may not feel annoying at all.
Yeah. So if you're noticing on the weekends that, maybe you've been at work, you've been at school, and then all of a sudden you're with your family and you have these great ideas of, I want to go have a great time, and then all of a sudden your child is having a meltdown, that's irritating you. Maybe your husband is doing something that's irritating you. It's really not that those things might not be real, but it's not so much them. We have the power, the sovereignty, if we start with ourselves, to shift that.
Yeah, because the quality of our life depends on the state of our mind. And we've been trained to blame the world for how we feel. And, in some cases it is true, especially if you're living in a very difficult situation. However, in many ways, we have a say over how we feel. That is sovereignty. If we have taken care of ourselves, if we have made sure that we're eating the right foods, drinking enough water, if we're sleeping enough, if we're doing things like meditation, breathing exercises, yoga, spending time in nature, those kinds of things can help make our nervous system so strong and resilient.
Yeah, and so if you are going through a rough patch, you have some advice. We talk a lot about forgiveness, okay?
Yes.
And that's something that there's a lot of science on forgiveness, but forgiveness is freedom.
It is.
But it's hard, right?
Yeah.
And forgiveness, it's the gift you give yourself. That's sort of what I wrote about in my
Yes.
book, Finding
Yes.
Dad, of, when you let something go, it's not about condoning bad behavior, it's for yourself. But from a
Yes.
scientific perspective, if
Yes.
you're sitting there and you're like, I just can't, or how do people forgive? Forgiveness is part of the science of a healthy relationship.
Yes.
So what can you tell us so we can forgive a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you said is so scientifically accurate. First of all, when you're not forgiving, you're angry, right? And what does anger do? We know that anger is related to risk of heart disease and high blood pressure and so forth. It's already wearing and tearing on our system. So anger is kind of like punishment you're giving yourself for what someone else did. So that can be that'd be helpful to remember.
Yeah, it's the poison you're drinking thinking it's hurting someone else.
Unfortunately, yeah. And then on the flip side, research on forgiveness shows that when you forgive another person, it actually lightens your load, not just sort of psychologically, but research has shown that after forgiveness, people actually jump higher and feel less tired going uphill. Like, it's really hilarious how physiologically you can experience forgiveness. It literally lightens your life.
Physically.
Yes, and people jump higher. These are some really interesting and fun studies that were done showing just how weighed down we can be when we carry a grudge.
Like when they say, get that monkey off my back, or I got that off my chest. We say that metaphorically, but we really are lightening ourselves when we let something go.
We're really lightening ourselves. We're giving ourselves such a breath of relief. Like, why give all that real estate to someone who troubled you? It's just not worth it. The real estate in your mind,
But here's the question. Let's get granular. How do you do it? You're like, I want to forgive. I want to let this go, but I'm just really angry. So how do you do that?
Interestingly, it goes back to that self-care piece, right?
Okay.
Are you doing your meditations, breathing exercises? Are you doing the things that soothe you? Because as you soothe yourself, you can start to let go. If you're constantly a ball of nerves, it's really difficult to be able to start to heal those parts of yourself.
And I just want to let people know that you go into this in depth in your book, Sovereign, which is available everywhere. You're actually starting an online course where you can walk people through it. And I think on your website you have how to meditate. I know that around here, I certainly have a meditation practice because of interviewing gurus like yourself for the last 20 years, and I know it's important. Sometimes that might be just 2 minutes of breathing. Sometimes it might be just taking a walk by myself. But for those who are like, oh, meditation, that just even that word weighs them down. What do you mean that, what can everyone do if you're one of those people like, I don't really like that word, or it could just be quiet time, it could be a walk in nature, it could be asking yourself, what do I need right now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be honest, when I first started meditating, I was so anxious. I was like, sit here, really? And just be aware of how anxious I am. It was right after 9/11, and I was living in New York City, and it wasn't working for me. So as you know, I started with breathing exercises, and I think that can be really helpful. It's just sit for 5 minutes and breathe out for twice as long as you breathe in. So you're breathing in for a count of 5, out for a count of 10. And that physiologically is going to calm your heart rate. It's going to tap into your parasympathetic nervous system, so the opposite of the fight or flight. And even doing that for 5 minutes. So if you start to do that for 5 minutes, let's say every morning, or whenever you have a moment, and then do that for a week, you can extend it. After a week, do it for 10 minutes.
And what do you do when that thought comes in? So many people say, I can't meditate because I don't ever stop thinking.
Yes.
That is okay, right? Like that, we're not going to stop that. You're going to have thoughts.
So just, as you sit there, welcome all the thoughts. Just be like, come on in, have a seat. Like, just give them a hug, And it's when we resist, what you resist persists. Anything we resist. So even if, let's say, you're trying to forgive someone and then you feel that anger thought coming back in, just be like, yep, hi, it's you again. Welcome. Then it doesn't stick as long, but when you try to push it away, think about, like, if you've ever been on a diet where you're like, I'm going to avoid gluten, like, what are you going to think about all day?
Okay, right.
It's a psychological process called ironic processes. We actually think about that which we're not trying to do. So what you want to do is actually not resist. Just welcome it all.
So back into the practical stuff with, let's go, we're still, I'm fortunate I'm in a happy marriage. Let's say that you assume it's not this bad thing, but let's say it's the typical people have been together and they're starting to get annoyed, or they're focusing on negativity or complaints, they're rushing, we don't have enough time to get here, or someone forgot to pay that bill, or who did what, in the busyness of modern family life. Celebrating the good stuff, you say, is actually really scientific, because the more we're complaining and blaming, just like your mother told you, don't complain, don't explain, that can really affect our relationships.
It's so easy to focus on the negative, and it's what we tend to do because our brain focuses on the negative. And yet when we focus on the negative, we completely forget what we love about the person, or we may not forget, but we forget to express it. And so what happens is the other person starts to feel down also because everything has been focused. They themselves are focusing on the negative. So what you ideally want to do is make sure that you share what you appreciate about the other person. And remember, that person also wants to feel safe, seen, heard, valued, and appreciated. And those are the moments that we forget and the things we forget to do. So,
yeah. So like literally how many times a day or how much, if you want to start small and change this because you realize I love my kids or I love my husband, but I'm being too cranky. And you want to start changing this habit into something lasting to be more sovereign on a more regular basis. What does that look like?
Well, research shows that when you're more grateful for your partner, not only are you happy in the relationship, but it rubs off on the other person as well.
Okay.
So making sure to say thank you, making sure to say, I saw how you tried to be so patient with our child to help them with their homework. And it was not easy. And it was really admirable. Like, I thought that was amazing.
Okay. Rather than, you forgot this or you forgot that. Someone goes to the grocery store and they bring home all these groceries, but they forgot the thing that was on the list.
Right.
In this world of the signs of a better relationship, if you're breathing under your mouth like they forgot, we should instead be like, oh, thank you so much for going to the grocery store and thank you for that, and then really not mention the thing they forgot or mention it later or try to focus on what the good that came out of it.
Yeah, it's so easy. We can start to take the other person for granted when we see them every day, when we live with them.
Okay.
And yet, if you think about it, oftentimes we keep our words of praise within and we say the words of criticism. So maybe we could flip that a little bit. So It doesn't mean if there's an important thing that needs to be said, it's not working, it's important to talk about it. But if we flip it and share the positive more often than the negative, that can make such a difference.
But back to our nervous systems, because sometimes you calm down and you're like, oh, usually most of us will say, I can't, now I owe an apology. And hopefully if you're in a good relationship, you're going to apologize. I really acted badly, or I'm sorry I said those things, or I'm sorry I snapped at you, either to your kid or your spouse. But so it goes back to us first. So if you're feeling irritated, you're feeling like you're going to criticize, you're feeling overwhelmed, what do we do in that moment so we don't have to apologize later?
One, keep quiet.
Keep quiet.
Keep your mouth shut.
Post-it notes everywhere. Keep quiet.
Keep your mouth shut. I mean, that's the simplest thing for you not to, but it starts with awareness, right? Oh, look, I'm irritated. And that's when you can start going in your head, oh, this person did that. Whatever your mind wants to do, welcome all the thoughts, it's fine. Keep quiet, And then if you can, even if it's 5 minutes, to go into another room and do some breathing.
Like go to the bathroom,
or
just something, remove yourself.
I need to take a walk around the block quick, stretch my legs. Whatever it is, it snaps you out of it. You get some fresh air. Research shows that even a 5-minute walk reduces anxiety and depression. So it's in nature, and here in Connecticut, we have an abundance of that. So
yeah, so again, just knowing what soothes you. And now sometimes people get there pretty quick and then they don't have the awareness to kind of get themselves back.
Yes.
But the importance would be start noticing.
That's right.
And then try and do something preemptively. And obviously, the self-care is where you're saying you're going to get less irritated if you got a good night's sleep or if you ate your breakfast.
And meditation and breathing exercises are the way to cultivate your awareness of yourself.
Okay.
And the other thing is, if you're constantly on your phone and you're constantly taking in a ton of different stimuli from my phone, from my child, from my husband, I got to do this, I got to make dinner, I got to go buy groceries. If you've got all that going on in your head, your awareness is low because there's so much stuff in there, right? So what I would also say is have good boundaries. When you're feeling overwhelmed, there's a lot going on, have good boundaries with your technology, with anywhere else you're getting input from.
Okay.
Focus on what's right in front of you.
Okay.
Then
And sometimes you might need to remove yourself if it's a noisy kitchen with everybody doing their stuff and you feel like you're going to snap and you're like, okay, I might need to go into a quiet room for 5 minutes and come back as myself, as my sovereign self before you say something you regret. All right, we're gonna take a break. You can use this to breathe and listen to a message from our sponsor. We'll be back in like 15 seconds.
Struggling with gambling? Wheeler Health's Better Choice program offers personalized support and treatment to help you regain control. Visit wheelerhealth.org to learn more and take the first step towards recovery today.
All right, so we're coming back to the secrets of happy relationships, especially in these chaotic, tumultuous times. And I'm here with Emma Seppala. She is a happiness researcher at Yale University. I know you also teach leaders about more effective leadership. And in our daily life, really, we're all leading something. You're leading your family, maybe you're in your marriage, and I think, there's so much in this, especially for these high achieving women, where maybe we have a job and you have a family and you're writing a book and you're doing all these things, right? That you're chasing something like a perfection, like I need to learn all these skills and then everything will be good. Is part of it that we're just trying to do too much all the time?
Yeah, I mean, the only way to juggle all of these things and try to do so in a way that you can feel successful or proud of is that something's got to give. So, if you're doing these things, then not being perfectionist about things like, oh, well, my desk is a mess and my closet is a mess, but something's got to give. Because if you need everything to be perfect, that's when you're the one who's going to give out. You're the one who's going to
And we go back to appreciation. This is a huge thing. Appreciation is like an elixir. It really can heal. If you're in a rough spot in your relationship, a lot of tense feelings or something, and you want to shift it back to a feeling of a loving relationship, appreciation is really the ingredient you need.
Appreciation and being able to express it in a way that's really genuine is really key. But the other thing is presence. So when you think about it, when was the last time someone was totally present with you? Even your partner may not have been.
Yeah.
We live in a time when you're talking to people and they're on their phone, their eyes are moving all over the place, they're not listening, they're distracted, they have so much stress, so much going on.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we become more present or make moments where your partner and you can be fully present with one another, and there you can share your appreciation, and the other person can actually hear it as well.
And that's where we learn active listening. It's so rare now, so often, that our human nature is maybe to just not really listen, but you're waiting to say something, or you lost your track, but you're not giving the full attention what they're saying, just what you're going to say. Active listening is also scientifically important for a healthy relationship.
Yes, I mean, because going back to this idea that everybody from at any age just wants to feel safe, seen, heard, valued, and appreciated.
Yes.
Seen, heard, and appreciated. You could summarize it in a couple of sentences, in a couple of words. And that is something that you can do when the other person feels heard, right? So if you can repeat back to the person what they said in different words so that they can feel that you actually understood them, that can go a long way. Even if you can't resolve the situation, they at least know that you understand them.
Well, it's much like we're doing in an interview. What we're trying to do is really listen, and then so we can ask a question that might be telling rather than, just looking at your notes, right? But in our personal lives, you might not do that. So what that looks like is you're actually putting space. And I know I get a little bit sensitive if someone's looking at their phone. I get really annoyed. Like, even if someone's, I'm listening, I just had to do this. No, right? So we want people to. Active listening means you're putting the phone away. You're really looking at that person's eyes, so that then if they tell you their story of this happened at work and that happened and that our child was doing this and I'm just really angry, rather than fixing them, well, you should have done this, whatever, we might just go, gosh, I really hear this was a hard morning for you.
Yes.
That's what that looks like, rather than trying to fix it.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we can't always fix things, but what we can help people is, what we can do is hold the space for them and let them know you're there for them and that you hear them and you appreciate them.
And so you say it has to be sincere. Probably not a good idea to show appreciation for your spouse when you're angry. It's like, so instead you might need I am in a moment where I need to go self-regulate, or I'm going to do, and that's actually, I keep thinking of kids, but when our teens are flying all over the place and they're losing their tempers because maybe their frontal lobes aren't fully formed, we'll give them an excuse. But we're modeling for our spouse or for our kids, and we say, I'm probably going to say something I regret. I'm going to go be by myself for a moment. I need a moment to be alone.
Yes.
Like, saying that stuff out loud actually teaches it to our kids so that maybe they're not flying off the handle all the time.
Yes. I mean, that's huge. And like you said, the authenticity is so key, because can we see through people? We see through people very easily, actually, if we're present, right?
Yes, yes.
You can see through people. And if I were angry and I said something to you, Cara, like, oh, I appreciate this, when I was actually angry, your heart rate would increase. Did you know that?
Oh, so I'm getting mad at someone and I'm making it worse because now my teen is getting more stressed because I'm yelling at them, or you're yelling at your spouse, or even with your stern tone, you're making everybody more angry by you being angry.
And if you hide it, their heart rate increases even more. because
They feel it?
they feel it, but they don't. So have you ever been around someone and you don't feel comfortable, but you don't know why?
Yes. Oh, for sure.
You're actually, because physiologically you're picking up an inauthenticity there. And
Okay.
research shows that, let's say I were angry and I were hiding it, but I was like smiling, your heart rate would increase. Do you see that?
I love it. Well, and I want to let everyone know you wrote a whole article on psychology today, and you research. Actually, the woman that you were speaking to went to University of Michigan, my alma mater.
Yes.
But I love at the end because in conclusion you say, when we focus on appreciation, support, and genuine human connection, that's how we create the fulfilling, uplifting environment. So that's the secret sauce: appreciation, support, and genuine connection.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So remembering to appreciate everybody every day, like, is one comment enough? Or I know it needs to be sincere, but if you're thinking, gosh, I don't say these words enough and I don't want to just say it to you on your birthday or Christmas.
Yes.
How do we, what would be a good guideline or a good goal?
I would say quality over quantity, you know.
Okay.
And if you're like, you know what, I didn't have time in the kitchen this morning, I don't have time to send a text, send an email from your work, just say, I just want to let you know what I appreciate about you. You know, we do this exercise in our leadership classes at Yale where we have people collect feedback from their family members, from their colleagues, but it's not just normal feedback, it's just positive feedback about times they showed up as their best self. And then the participants receive all this at once, and they read it the night before they come into my class, and they all report crying, and they're saying, wow, I can't believe. And oftentimes the stories that were told in the feedback are stories that they had long forgotten. And they're like, well, wouldn't everybody do that? No, not everybody would do that. You changed that person's life forever, and you've forgotten that moment. So, but they often say this is the kind of thing that you would only say after someone dies.
Yeah.
Right? And so why can't we celebrate others while they're still alive? Like if it helps, sometimes you could think, well, if my person I'm mad at, whoever it is, you know, if that person were sick or were to pass away, I would have all these words of appreciation for them. Let's not wait until that time.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a famous book about that, but like if you wrote your eulogy while you're still alive. So living like that, I don't want to be morbid, but living with the idea of we're all busy, we're all stressed. So number one, as we kind of come to the end of this, we're running out of time here, self-care is so important. You're not going to be able to really be appreciative and supportive if you're depleted.
Yes.
You can't give what you don't have.
There's another thing, too, is that, you know, most people tend to be highly self-critical. But research shows when you're highly self-critical, your relationships suffer. Because if you think about it, if you're really harsh on yourself, you're also going to be harsh on the people you love the most and want to hurt the least. So not just the self-care, but actually developing a non-toxic relationship with yourself. You know, we talk about toxic relationships with other people. Well, how many of us have a toxic relationship with ourselves? So if we can turn that around and create a nurturing relationship with ourselves, it benefits our relationships with others.
You can follow Emma on Instagram. I know we're out of time, but tell people how they find you.
I'm at The Happiness Track on Instagram.
Yeah, at The Happiness Track, and your book, Sovereign, available everywhere. And there's even a course so you can learn with Emma, who is a Yale happiness researcher. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Cara.
Have a great day, everyone. And we hope that you are well. You can also follow me on social media at Cara Sundlin. There's a Cara's Cures Facebook group as well. And if you enjoyed this, please leave a review or a comment on the podcast app. Bye.
Sponsored by Wheeler Health's Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.